saying 10. I mean, even though we stand alone, we stand together.
Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for landing. Fasten your seatbelts. Thank you for flying Air Force Airlines. Oh, me. Call me the captain. Just blaze.
They say a family that prays together stays together, and one that walks apart just falls apart. So together we stand, divided we fall, united we form Voltron and take on ball. Let's move, yes. The birds left the nest. I'm all grown up, I gotta fly with the rest. Best of the best is what we strive.
You're watching Unpackaged Goods. I'm your host, Jonathan Dieter. Podcast is brought to you by Trophy Wife, the official finishing salt of Unpackaged Goods. Welcome back. So, big weekend news, a lot of fundraising news, big food news. Rigatoni says, Dad, I want to be in here now. So let's get into it. Sprinter raised $4 million. Protein invaded Pop-Tarts. And someone just put creatine in a candy bar. Welcome to Unpackaged Goods, where even your nostalgia needs 10 grams of protein. Alrighty, so it is late or early, wherever you are located. I had a busy evening. I went to a couple networking events tonight. Shout out to the Bite and Brownie boys. They invited me to this event that the Lupini founders were at. It was in Soho. It was this pop-up for this special type of bread. I'm blanking on the name. Italian astronaut that was there. It was super cool. It was an awesome event. Some really sweet people there. The most beautiful little tin goodie bag. I'm definitely going to go back and get some more bread. The bread was delicious. There was actually pictures at the pop-up of them like giving their bread to the Pope, them at the White House. It was really cool. Everyone was Italian. There was quite literally a cannoli station. There was a guy just like squeezing out fresh cannolis. It was awesome. It was really delicious. After that, so I put a video out today about Founders Basketball. They hosted their first Founders Dinner. This was really cool. Brandon over there is doing an awesome job at not only building a community, but building a really strong group of people, mix of people within media, tech, sports, you name it, mix of founders, investors, operators. It's really an awesome group of people. Basketball has the ability to really break down barriers. People are able to just have fun on the court, you know, when you're going at it, being teammates, relying on one another, dapping each other up in between games. It's a way to build community that isn't just like pitching. And so tonight was a dinner at And Son, a speakeasy steakhouse in the West Village. It was awesome. It was really delicious. We were upstairs in their like library private dining room. It was really beautiful. On the menu, we had some Caesar salad. We had some steak. We had some amazing sides, some carbonara, some potatoes, some cream spinach. It was awesome. Oh, and then dessert. They had these little like chocolate mousse and then also cheesecake jars. They were so good. Really good conversations, really cool founders, people just addressing really interesting problems that need solutions that aren't out there yet. And so it was really cool too. My first episode with the Lucky Ox boys, Thane was there, so I got to see him. I also got to meet Angel, who makes the matcha, the ceremonial grade matcha that is in their lemonade matcha sparkler. She has a cafe here in New York. She also has an omakase restaurant. And so super excited. She's doing a pop-up this weekend, and so I'm going to go check it out. So yeah, you just never know who you're going to meet. And that's what I love about being in New York. That's what I love about these events is just cool people doing cool stuff. She's also taking an interesting approach where she has the cafe, she has the restaurant, and then the CPG product being the packaged matcha. And so, she is going to not only, she sells the packaged matcha, but she also has aspirations to launch other products. And so I think having the cafe and being able to already have a consumer, a universe of consumers, a user base, if you will, of people who then will try your packaged goods, your CPG items. I think it's a no-brainer, and it's really a cool model. So I'm excited for her and excited to see that brand grow. Big week for big money movers. So the big news was Built Bar is exploring a sale. And they hired a Houlihan Lokey to explore their options. And so the Puff Protein Bar from Utah, founded in 2018. Protein bar M&A space is hot right now. Ferrero, 1440 Foods, Hershey, they're all looking to make acquisitions right now. Protein bar gold rush continues. Sprinter Spirits raised $4 million. So some of you may know this as Kylie Jenner's vodka brand. And so this was founded in 2023. Larry Goodrich was named CEO of Calabasas Beverage Group. So yes, as you probably guessed, 818 also lives within Calabasas Beverage Group. And so he runs both of those companies, Sprinter and 818. So celebrity spirits are still attracting investments. This is an example where Kylie and Kendall have massive followings. That's just going to lead to curious consumers who want to just try their products because of them and who they like. They have enough money to invest early in these brands to make them good and to hire the right talent. So I don't drink anymore. Someone will have to let me know how they are. All Things Butter raised $2 million. So we talked about this in the newsletter on Sunday. UK premium butter is expanding. 10 SKUs, 2,000 UK doors, because apparently butter needs venture funding now too. So I think this is interesting. So I went to the Butter Girl event a couple weeks ago in New York, and was very much so like the event to go be seen at. The butters were delicious. I think there's definitely a market for elevated butter. As you can see, people want to change the butter aisle. It's very boring. There's not a lot of fun flavors going on like what Butter Girl is doing. She's gone so viral overnight. She's gifted other influencers packages that have then reposted it. Like that hit rate is like 2 for 2. So yeah, she's doing some really cool stuff. If anything, this is an indication that there's an appetite for it in the market. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see her following in their footsteps. Segment 2, corporate moves. So Unilever dumped Kate Somerville. Sold to Rare Beauty Brands, owned by Petchology and Dr. Dana, to continue to clean up their portfolio when Big Beauty is getting smaller. And so, yeah, I'll have to ask my cousin what she thinks about this. Shout out Julia if you're listening. Starboard takes stake in Keurig's Dr. Pepper. Activist investor smells opportunity after the stock drop. KDP planning a split into 2 companies. Post 18 billion JDE Pete's acquisition drama. Segment 3, retail expansion. So Alice Mushrooms is in 900 Target doors. Functional fungi goes mainstream. So we've talked about Alice on other pods, but my mom saw them in a grocery store in Cleveland. Not Happier Grocer. The Mustard Seed, shout out Mustard Seed. So yeah, I think this makes sense. 900 Target doors, that's so crazy. I remember like emailing them when they were first starting and ordering their subscriptions. And so yeah, I think you're going to continue to see this trend. Target, Walmart, you're all just want to see more health and wellness. There's more of an appetite for health and wellness products in the mainstream consumer. There's a lot of mainstream consumers who are curious about a lot of these trends and wellness trends, and they just want to be educated and have access to them. And so, I think putting them in the Walmarts, putting them in the Targets makes a lot of sense. And I think it's going to gain a lot of new consumers. Symbiotica, 4 SKUs nationwide at Target. Premium supplements go mass. So they had a big announcement for this. This is really interesting. Again, wellness, premium supplements, Target, Walmart. You're starting to see this trend. It's not just the coastal cities consumer who is interested in these wellness products. Baker is going nationwide at Target launch. A lot of Target doors opening this week. And La Bonne Procès opens first U.S. store in New York City. French hairbrushes hit Manhattan. We'll have to go check this out. I wonder where it opened. La Bonne Procès. Booms milestone. 100 million cans sold. They launched their RTD ready to drink last summer. That's wild. The energy drink success story continues. I don't love energy drinks. I love healthier caffeine drinks. Where is it? Oh, it's over there. My birdie tea. It's so pretty. Shout out to those guys. They just launched. I just got my peach oolong and jasmine apple tea, sparkling tea. And so I'm going to do a video on Instagram and TikTok about them. I'm super excited for them. Two brothers, two other friends who have joined forces to create this amazing Asian beverage brand. So I'm really excited about their launch, really excited about their product. Segment 4, Protein Everywhere 2.0. So this week, protein invasion continues. Bearabells protein soda, 10 grams of protein plus 200 milligrams of caffeine. I don't know how I feel about this. I'm starting to feel like 10 grams of protein here, 10 grams of protein there. It's going to start to add up. And if you're not exercising, start to gain weight. I don't know. It's a lot of protein. I always found, like, back in the day, back in high school, when, like, protein powders were really big, I would gain weight if I was having too much protein and not, like, balancing it in my diet. And so the protein soda is bizarre. I'm going to try it. Don't know if I'm going to like it. Jimmy Bar, 20 grams of protein, 5 grams of creatine in a bar. Creatine is making the big push in 2026. Sodas, bars, I think you're going to see creatine in everything. And so we'll try it. This maybe reminds me a little bit of the Get Up bites that I saw last night at Founders Basketball. They had caffeine in these little oatmeal bites with like dates, brown rice, cane sugar. They were really delicious. I wouldn't be surprised if they do like a creatine bite. It's how the direction the market's going. Legendary Foods mac and cheese, 47 grams of protein. That's crazy, coming in 2026. And you probably saw the news, Pop-Tarts is coming out with their protein-packed Pop-Tart. 10 grams per pastry, November 2025. Yeah, makes sense. 10 grams here, 10 grams there. That seems to be like the low-end threshold that the consumer is okay with without being like, raising an eyebrow and being like, that's a lot of protein. The Legendary Foods mac and cheese, 47 grams of protein. I guess that's like the same amount of like protein as like 40 grams of protein in some of these protein-packed ice creams. That's kind of the threshold. So, lot of protein. I'm not really paying attention to how much protein is going into my diet. As long as I'm getting enough exercise, I think that's the important thing. I definitely do know the improvement in my recovery when I'm incorporating protein after. I just think I need to be careful about how much and what forms I'm taking protein in. I much prefer clean proteins, food proteins. So yeah, we'll see here. We've reached peak protein absurdity. Pop-Tarts with protein is like putting a gym membership in a donut box. Alrighty, quick hitters. Liquid Death named CFO Ricky Katadarpal. I don't know how to pronounce that. Ricky Katadarpal from Health Aid. Equip food brand refresh. Prepping for retail with high post capital. A lot of people were torn over this online. I thought it looked really nice. So Equip Foods, if you're listening, great job with the rebrand. Rhode launches peptide eye prep post e.l.f. acquisition. The under eye care is really big right now. I use a lot of under eye products. I was recently in an event last week with Mimi Chang's and they gave out this toning cream that came with a little rolling ball that you put under your eyes. So it was really nice. So I love the under eye gels. I think that makes a lot of sense. And so I think you're going to see eye care be a big trend here moving into next year and into the following year. Small Act enters crowded electrolyte space, 1,000 milligram of sodium. Interesting. So for those of you that struggle with hydration, like myself, you'll know that sodium is sometimes good, sometimes bad. But when you're dehydrated, it's really good. So interested to see how this tastes and how it feels. Speaking of making everyday products better, that's exactly what Trelli Health is doing. I'm really excited about this interview. It was a beautiful day in Greenpoint. I got to go talk with Luke, who, through his own use of taking Tylenol, developed stomach ulcers and came up with Trelli, really a better for you Tylenol, cold medicine, and IBS medicine. So enough. I will let Luke take it from here and introduce himself.
Luke, I'm the founder of Trelli, and Trelli is a better for you symptom relief company in that we want to give consumers, an alternative to their over-the-counter medicine, but in a format that can be less side effect heavy or risky.
I love that. And how did you come across like this side of the health and wellness journey? Why did you decide to go after like supplements and better for you, like pain relief medication?
Yeah, definitely. It was actually not expected at all. I was in consulting before this, and longtime sufferer of IBS. So I've always been used to taking like a lot of Tums, a lot of like NSAIDs to manage those symptoms. And I feel like when I was in consulting, I was taking a lot more just to kind of, stay in the job. And it got to actually a point in time where my IBS was worsening. I felt like nothing I was taking was helping, was actually making everything worse. I went into the doctor's office and I found I had a lot of ulcers throughout my colon and my stomach from that NSAID usage, and the Tums wasn't helping on top of that. And to this day, I really can't take that medication. So it was kind of just like a wake up call in terms of like what other forms of symptom relief are out there. And I truly struggled to find anything that could be like effective. I felt like most natural products or supplements are obviously geared towards consistent day usage, and that, by day 30, maybe you'll see some marginal benefits. And I just wanted something that could be a single dose effective. And that's really what sparked Trelli, is trying to fit into this problem statement.
I think a lot of these CPG companies are really born through like a personal health journey.
Totally, yeah.
And when something that really affects you, there has to be a smarter, healthier way to consume this ingredient that I need. So I really love that you looked at that critically. So coming from you grew up in the Midwest, Minnesota.
Yes.
Shout out Minnesota.
Love Minnesota.
So the thing I have on the brain right now is the Minnesota State Fair.
Okay, yes.
And I have heard legendary things about it in terms of the fried food.
Oh, yeah.
So as you've had to rethink your health and what you can eat and not eat, has that impacted like the things you can eat and drink?
Honestly, like I would say yes and no. I was one of those people who like through my IBS journey, like I've seen hundreds, not hundreds, but tens of gastroenterologists over time, and have done the classic like FODMAP diet or like elimination diets. And I definitely have things, that I know will cause kind of a flare up or something a little bit more heavy. But I think honestly, the biggest thing for me is just kind of like trying to take what works and just keeping that consistent. Like I don't try to like modify my lifestyle, or like if I want, the fried Snickers at the state fair, like yes, absolutely have one. I think it's just that like in moderation concept, but then also knowing like what's going to cause a really big flare up where I don't want to risk it or do it.
Totally. And I think you're really looking at the medication space in an interesting way, where a lot of these medications take, a month, 60 days to really kick in to see the difference. So what is it about your fast acting ingredients that address these problems instantly?
Yeah, I think for Trelli and the products we have, we think about the ingredients and kind of how they're put into the body in a little bit of a different way than supplements, and that we are very, very focused on that fast acting nature. Like we want our products to work in 30 minutes or less. So part of that is when we find a naturally derived bioactive that we really like, we're looking at like, what's the pharmacokinetic profile of this? How fast does it go into the bloodstream? And are there ways we can bioengineer or partner with a company that can help us to improve that? So we really think about that very, very carefully across all of our formulations. And then we have this really strong medical advisory group that's looking at our formulations with us to think through like what's going to be, a synergistic profile that we can add to this that can increase that. So for example, small doses of caffeine typically work really, really well with like a compound that provides this analgesic effect. So combining those together, we can have that fast acting relief profile in our products that you typically wouldn't see in your everyday supplements.
Wow, that's super interesting. Yeah, you told me a little bit about last time your scientists that you have on your board and advisory board, and really the team you've assembled. Tell us a little bit about the different product lines you're exploring and like why those are of interest to you. Obviously, the IBS is personal
Yeah.
journey, but tell us a little bit about some of the other products.
Definitely. So we have created 3 products at Trelli. One of them, as you mentioned, is an IBS-based product. It's called Colomend. It's really designed to help relieve IBS flare-ups. So you can think like bloating, gas, nausea, indigestion, abdominal cramping. It's really focused on those. The second product is called Relievade. This is our acute pain relief product. So it functions very much like a Tylenol or an Advil. And then our third is called Respifix, which is focused more on like a cold and congestion based profile, thinking through symptoms of like coughing, sore throat, congestion. And we really approached, creating these 3 products in the sense of, are there actives out there that have clinical studies that can prove that they have this therapeutic effect in the human body and can relieve those symptoms, while at the same time being fast acting, having a reduced side effect profile, reduced risks that we really want to have as a hallmark to all of the Trelli products.
Bring up one word that has been in the news a lot recently,
Yeah.
Tylenol.
Yeah.
And it has been really politicized, and a lot of people, there's been a lot of misinformation and misconceptions around it. So for those listening who have heard a lot about Tylenol in the news, have taken Tylenol in the past, can you tell us a little bit about what it is in Tylenol that people are up in arms and really excited about, and like why you should avoid it, or just tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, what you think's going on.
Yeah, definitely. I think first and foremost, like Trelli at its core, we are very much a science-backed company, meaning all of our ingredients have clinical trials against them. We care a lot about the science and the evidence. So I think it's important that we kind of come at anytime we look at an over-the-counter ingredient or active with that same lens. So Tylenol, the main active is called acetaminophen. And that's what the administration recently put out some news about in terms of it potentially causing autism. When you look at a lot of the clinical data behind it, there is not necessarily this causal link between taking acetaminophen during pregnancy and having a child with autism. So I think it's important to say during your pregnancy, there hasn't been a lot of new shifts in what you should or shouldn't do. In that, at the end of the day, if you have a fever or you have pain, you should consult with your doctor and absolutely kind of take the medication that they're recommending, because, not reducing that fever or taking away that pain still causes a lot of risk for the infant as well. So I'd say like at the end of the day, Tylenol has been well studied using it in pregnancy, not having, any risk for kind of future onset of autism in the newborn. But outside of that, Tylenol, or acetaminophen, I should say, really does have kind of an interesting profile in that it's actually the leading cause of liver failure in the US. So I think a lot of folks think about Tylenol or any kind of OTC medicine as being, incredibly safe because it's sitting on that shelf. But there are some real risks to these products, especially when you start to think about, taking multiple doses of these products each day or taking them consistently day over day. And that does then have the effect on kind of the liver or broader health problems that we're seeing. And that's really where Trelli wants to come into play, is giving you an alternative solution to these products that can be as effective, that doesn't have that same risk, so that, if you do have that one-off day where you need Tylenol, you could take it. But if you're having that consistent pain or something, Trelli might be a good solution as well.
So we've talked a lot about the pain relief. Can you give us some other kind of mainstream brands or not supplements, but medications that people have been taking? So maybe like Dayquil, NyQuil, would that be an alternative to
Yeah.
your cough medicine? Or
Yeah, it's really interesting you mentioned Dayquil and NyQuil. The cold medicine in general is a very interesting category in that, in 2023, the FDA found that phenylephrine, which is one of the main ingredients in those medications, it's claimed as a nasal decongestant, was ineffective and it had no benefit over placebo.
Huh.
So that came out in 2023, but it's still sold today. The FDA hasn't pushed for it to be pulled off the shelves or anything like that, but it goes to say that a lot of times I think we perceive a lot of these medications as having, gold standards in efficacy or symptom relief. And sometimes those initial studies that they came to market with wouldn't pass today's standards. And that's where you start to see those modern day standards coming into play with phenylephrine. And so Respifix, our cold product, does have a lot of more modern day studies, but also clinical and historical use across Europe, across Asia, has having a long time benefit of symptom relief. And that's where we're really sitting in terms of comparing to like a Dayquil or Respifix and kind of where it fits in.
I think that's really interesting. You mentioned, the pharmacies in Europe are very different from here.
Right.
The pharmacies in Asia are very different from here. So it sounds like you guys are really trying to incorporate maybe some medicines or ingredients that are more familiar to those parts of the world that maybe aren't as familiar to the United States consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the more interesting things is kind of when you do go to Europe or Asia and you go to the pharmacy, a lot of times the pharmacist will kind of first recommend a more natural or, less aggressive active that could kind of benefit for symptom relief. And then if that doesn't work, it kind of goes into the next product base of, drugs or actives around that. And I think that's where we can pull a lot of inspiration for not only Trelli products, but just also kind of health management in general. One thing I think we've seen across the consumer landscape is food standards and kind of thinking about like European standards and how that plays into like the US food landscape. I know Bobby, for example, likes to call out how they're kind of following, EU guidelines in terms of infant formula versus US guidelines because they're more stringent. We would follow a very similar use case pattern in that we're looking at the EU and their pharmacopoeia standards for ingredients and botanicals or other natural based products and using that as a reference point for how we think about formulation in our products.
Yeah, I think that's super important. You can learn a lot from what other people are doing around the world,
Yeah.
and honestly, just how their people are living, and just are they
Yeah.
living healthier lifestyles? Are they living longer? I mean, if you look at the life expectancies around the world, I mean, the U.S. has some of the lowest, and so I think it's really interesting. There's a huge education piece to this.
Right.
As a founder in this space, what are the hurdles in terms of educating people, but also getting this in the right hands of the right consumer?
Right. I think there's like a few things. I think one, medicine and supplements in general, I think over the last couple of years have had some bad actors that have kind of soured people on the industry as a whole. And I think it's important to kind of combat that taboo nature of some things. And for example, like I do not think that most over the counter products are going to kill you or cause a lot of issues. I think it's actually the way Americans tend to medicate that introduces those problems and that we use them more frequently than they are originally designed. We are taking them for kind of lower level symptoms or the opposite effect in that you're someone that has a headache and you're waiting to take that ibuprofen until it gets really, really bad. That's probably the worst way you can treat your pain. Pain is really hard to kind of combat when it gets to that intensity level. And I think that's the open dialogue we need to have of like, when is the right time to take a product like a Trelli if it's something you might need for several days versus, if you're taking Excedrin for a really intense migraine. So I think that's kind of one of the areas is just to call it in the open, like where we stand in this field. But then I think it also is, citing again, kind of there are real risks to some of these more, traditional products that we've been using for years and years. And it's okay to kind of think about what a different solution might be. The word natural, obviously, for a lot of people means like more gentle or less effective. And I think it doesn't have to, especially when you try our products in terms of how we formulate to be fast acting, the bioengineering that goes on with the active compounds we're using. We're really trying to change the perspective on like a naturally derived bioactive versus like a synthetically derived one and how it can work for therapeutic effect. So I think that's another area that we're really talking about and having those open conversations with, not only physicians, but the consumers themselves and how they can think about it.
That's interesting. Yeah. Are there any like hospitals, doctors, physicians that you're thinking about partnering with to kind of help spread awareness?
Yeah, I mean, so our medical advisory board is made up of mostly MDs and we have a few NDs as well. But I think by and large, one group of medicine that kind of thinks about this a lot is like an integrative medicine, perspective in terms of holistically looking at the body, what you're eating, what you're taking, how you work with it. And I think they tend to think about like a supplement based approach in addition to kind of the traditional approach. And I think there is a lot of overlap for our products. But I think too, when you think about like specialty practices like gastroenterology, for example, they have been using enterically coated peppermint oil for decades as a really good way to help with abdominal cramping or bowel irregularity with IBS. So I think that approach and kind of how we're up leveling that into our products and how we think about it is a good way as well to kind of expand into more what I would call like the Western medicine approaches to this.
Yeah, I think that that's a really interesting point. That kind of bridging that gap to the Western
Yeah.
approach is really important, and doing it in a way that's approachable for the consumer also, so that they understand, like, hey, this is available to me. Um, so, kind of shifting gears from, focusing on pain to kind of things that make you feel good. What are some of your favorite things in New York that you like to do?
I mean, so I have a dog, so I would say love getting to walk him in the parks, kind of exploring the different parks of New York. We live in Brooklyn. We're here kind of today, so I think that's definitely a highlight. Obviously, restaurants in New York are fantastic, so kind of finding those new fun spots to go to is always great. And then, as the trends go, I've been getting more into rock climbing lately, so
I
kind of
love it.
bouldering, jumping around, seeing the different gyms has been a fun thing as of late.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, that's a big thing out here. There are a lot of the gyms are
Yeah.
out here, so it's more accessible. I have an old colleague that was into rock climbing, and they would go do that. So I'll have to maybe get into it.
Definitely.
It sounds like fun.
It's a great time. I feel like it's a more fun way to work out than the classic kind of gym and lifting approach.
Totally. I think people are looking for a little bit more optionality when it comes to fitness.
Yeah.
I get bored sometimes. I got to do like different types of classes, runs. Like I have to mix it up or I get really bored.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I like to mountain bike in the summer, and so we've been to Moab, Utah a couple times, and we'll always see the rock climbers on the actual rocks, and I'm like, wow. I'm like, that is really something
I would
else.
say I'm not at that level yet.
Something to work
But
towards.
yeah, exactly, a dream.
I think it's important as a founder to have hobbies, to have things to
Totally.
balance what is going on. What are some things you mentioned the dog, rock climbing? What are some other things that as a founder that you'd use to really balance your life and what's going on?
I would say, like, if I've had a really stressful or, like, tough day, like, one of my favorite things is to, like, cook actually, is just, like,
Ooh,
to sit in the kitchen and, like, kind of
same.
turn off the brain and just, like, go at that. I think that's one of the best things for me. Otherwise, I mean, big fan of walking with or without the dog. Like, I
Yeah.
think I go on so many walks through like Brooklyn or wherever to just kind of clear my head and try to not think about work or other things. And it also helps to like discover different parts of the city. I've discovered so much more of Greenpoint through like my, stress strolls, call them, kind of just like exploring and doing that. So it's another great way.
Stress strolls. I
Yeah.
like that. I really like that. So, as we approach the holiday season, give me some of your favorite holiday traditions and things that you love in New York City.
Definitely. I mean, we mentioned I'm from Minnesota, so I'm
That's
a
right.
very big family guy. So I love going home for the holidays. I've been going home like every year since I've moved to New York. So I'm not typically in New York for the actual holiday season. But I do have a lot of friends that like to visit around this time. I think people think New York can be pretty cool, seeing the tree or the different markets. But yeah, I would say most of the time, like half of December, I'm spending in Minnesota usually.
I love that. Really getting a true winter
Exactly. We have
experience.
more snow. It's more
You
like,
can go ice
yeah,
skating. Like,
exactly.
yeah, it's much more wintry. Yeah, I tell people, yeah, I like to go home. My mom's in Ohio, and so I get more of that, white Christmas. But when I am in the city, the Botanical Gardens has the most fabulous train show in the Bronx. And every Christmas, holiday season, I go up to the train show. It's like this huge exhibit through the greenhouse, and
Yeah.
it's extraordinary. If you haven't been, I recommend it to everyone.
I love the Botanical Gardens. One of the friends of Trelli, he's the vice president there. And so it's been great, like hearing his perspective and like we get to go and all the time to kind of see what he's working on. The Botanical Gardens are amazing.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow, we should have done the interview there. We'll do part two
Yes,
there.
exactly. That would be amazing.
Okay, we're gonna do part two on a nice warm day, maybe in the Rose Garden. Their Rose Garden's like
Perfect.
fabulous.
Yes.
Oh, that's so cool. I love just finding out like random fun facts about people like we both love the Botanical Gardens. So as you think about, expanding your reach with Trelli,
Yeah.
you're in New York right now. How do you launch it into the rest of the United States? Do you start with like a coastal approach, or are you really trying to address kind of your middle America consumer that you think this might actually be a better fit for?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was surprised a little bit actually, because when we were doing some of like initial consumer research, it was definitely thinking, the coasts tend to love wellness. They tend to like to be trendsetters and kind of adopt new products first. But we found there was actually a lot of appetite kind of across, middle America, rural America, as well as people were thinking through kind of, chemical free routines or what could be, good for longevity. I think that's been a recent push as of late as well. And this does kind of fit into that overall sphere. So we're thinking about this strategically actually in that we'll launch kind of really looking at the clinical endpoints where we have a lot of clinical data to support our products and how they work, and working within those communities to help talk about the products and showcase the efficacy. And so for example, of course our IBS product works very well with folks with IBS. We're more so thinking, who has IBS that wants to share, try this product, kind of create that referral network. But also with our pain product, it works well for menstrual cramps, PCOS, endometriosis, thinking through people who might have, days where they need to take a pain reliever every day for 3 or 4 days. And that's another great use case for Trelli, in that you can kind of reduce the risk you'd have with NSAIDs or gastric irritation or anything like that. So that's how we're kind of approaching this, scaling aspect of the company, and kind of really focusing on those people that can benefit the most and have this unique use case. But then we can also showcase the efficacy and kind of broaden it into, other areas of headaches or joint and muscle cramps or anything like that.
I think that's really smart. You need to really build a loyal fan base, because then
Yeah.
they're going to be your biggest advocates. And
Right.
they're going to be the ones that are like, no, this is really making a noticeable difference in my life.
Definitely.
And it's really a pain point that I've noticed for people. They're trying to find medication that's safer, that's easier on the body. And so I think that you really have carved out an interesting niche. And I think Charlie is going to be really successful. And I'm excited to see you guys grow. As you think through, other health challenges in areas that you'd like to maybe tackle down the road, what are some of those like bigger picture items?
Yeah, I think for us, we started Trelli thinking of this broad approach of like, the average consumer who just has these symptoms and they want to get relieved. But I think there are some communities out there that actually can't take a lot of over-the-counter medication that we could really, provide a unique benefit towards. And so, for example, like pregnant women, of course, like as we spoke about, Tylenol is kind of one of the only options they have for fever reducing, products or kind of pain relief products. But I think there's a lot of potential in terms of like thinking through like nausea relief or a different form of pain relief that they could have, and kind of formulating for those based communities. Children's lines, I think, is of course another big topic, especially as a lot of parents don't necessarily want to give their children drugs as they're, younger or developing. And I think that's a very big opportunity for us as well.
I couldn't agree more. I'm really happy you bring up the children's space. I think that's going to be one of the biggest spaces in 2026 leading into 2027.
Yeah.
I think you have a lot of better for you kids brands coming out. But like you said, it's like the medication, then the parents. I don't think anyone's really thinking about that yet. So it's definitely something to keep on your radar. The better for you kids brands are popping up left
Yeah.
and right.
Yeah.
And, now it seems like all my friends are starting to have kids. And so it's something they're paying attention to. And I think within the social media day, now it's like so much more like in front of us. And so we're just like aware of all these different
Yeah.
trends and what's available, what's not available. So how do you stay in front of that? And how do you, manage the social side of things while also maintaining brand integrity?
Yeah. I think Trelly is really built on the principle of trust. Like you want to be able to trust your medicine, and I think that's where we gain consumers, is that they've kind of fallen out of trust with either over the counter products, or they don't like the supplements they're taking for kind of these more functional aspects of their life. And we back that trust up, not only with the science that we use and talking about the clinical studies that have been performed or that we're currently performing or look to do, but I think we also do that through kind of the network effect that we spoke to, of working with people who it has worked for and it benefits. One of the more unique aspects of Trelli is that we do kind of promise that single dose efficacy, and that you should be able to feel our products in that first dose that you take. So I think being able to give consumers that opportunity to just try the product, and like if it works, it's worked. Like you don't have to take it for, 20 more days to see any sort of benefit.
Yeah.
That's really where we start to build that trust up. And I think continuing to do that as we expand into pregnant lines or children's lines is, continuing to do those clinical trials and like truly what works and what doesn't work. 'Cause I think that's what separates us from a lot of different wellness brands, is that we wouldn't release a product without a lot of clinical backing. And if it doesn't have that, we would like to do it ourselves then. And so like investing in that research before it launches to be able to say very confidently, like, it works, it's safe for this reason, and it's going to have, clinical endpoints of XYZ.
I love that. I think you're really thinking about this in a thoughtful way.
Yeah.
You've put already a lot of thought and time
Yeah.
into this, which is amazing. And you're solving a real world problem, and that people have already been like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I'm so excited to try it when it comes out." So I know some shipping delays, but hopefully in the next few months you'll be live and rolling out to consumers. And so
Definitely.
I'm really excited for you as we wrap things up. What is, one of your biggest learnings from starting a CPG company, and then also one of your greatest accomplishments?
I would say one of the biggest learnings is, so I was in consulting before this. I was actually in a pharmaceutical consulting practice. CPG has a lot of moving parts, like, from the manufacturing to the packaging to the marketing to building relationships with the consumers. Like, I think there's so many more individual facets that makes it so unique and fun, but also very daunting and scary. I think that's been one of the biggest learnings, is just like being able to understand all of that, wrap that up into a company that is going to succeed and has a brand built out around it. That's been very, very exciting and tricky. Um, I think one of the biggest accomplishments for Trelli is actually going back to our medical advisory board. Like, these are world-renowned doctors and industry leaders that have been working with us for over a year in terms of formulating these products and combing through thousands of clinical studies and like figuring out what's going to work, what the dosage should look like, what the pharmacokinetic study is, designing a clinical trial. Like, these are, true thought partners for us, and having them kind of sit on that advisory board is really, really special. So I'm excited that we have such a strong team, not only that is sitting behind these products, but then helping us as we think through, product expansion and where we go from here.
Yeah, I think that's super important to have a team behind you. Well, this has been amazing. I look forward to part 2 at the Botanical Gardens
Exactly,
someday, and we'll be
definitely.
able to hear about all the growth and success that you guys have. Thank you again for coming on, Luke. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to part 2.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.